Hey guys, tonight we're going back a long way back to a time when the gods walked among us, or at least stumbled barefoot along the Aegean coast with suspiciously perfect hair and an air of confusing detachment. You're standing on the warm sands of a quiet cove, the kind that probably isn't on any map, and the sun is slipping into that honey-colored phase where everything looks like it's been brushed with melted gold. You squint, because there's a figure in the distance, a man, or a boy, or someone. He's not walking so much as drifting. No shoes, no bag, just a wine-red robe, messy curls, and a kind of vague, unreadable smile that suggests he knows exactly where you hid that secret snack stash when you were 12. You should probably run. You probably won't survive this .so. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I always love seeing how far this sleepy little corner of history travels. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The figure hums as he walks. The tune is unfamiliar, but oddly catchy, sort of like a lullaby written by a poet who's had one too many olives. You're not sure why you're still standing here. Maybe it's the way the sand seems to soften under your feet, or the faint scent of crushed grapes on the breeze. He stops in front of you and smiles, lazy and knowing. Do you know where I am? He asks, as if you're the one who might be lost. No, you admit, because you don't. You were just following the coast, hoping to find something: food, a town, maybe even a nice boring fishing boat. What you found is not that. He nods, like you've confirmed something he suspected. Good, he says. Neither do I. You blink. He sits on a rock and begins to hum again, this time louder. The melody wraps itself around you like warm fabric. You glance at the sky. It's still bright, but stars are already peeking through. That's fast. You're either in the presence of something cosmic or deeply jet-lagged. Historians still argue whether this story is pure myth, a wine-soaked allegory, or based on a real cultic incident involving too much fermented honey and a deeply confused sailor. But in this moment, it doesn't matter. The man before you is real, and he's clearly not from around here. Then, without warning, you hear it, the splash of oars. A ship coasts into view, long and narrow, the kind of vessel used by coastal traders or opportunistic pirates who dabble in kidnapping. The young man stands, calm as ever, and raises one lazy hand. The boat pulls in. 10 or so men lean over the edge, sunburned, scruffy, and squinting. They spot the robed stranger. One elbows another and laughs. Looks like royalty, he sneers. Bet his family I'll pay a fortune to get him back. They throw down a rope ladder. You, slightly horrified but weirdly fascinated, climb aboard after the man. Nobody stops you. The crew introduces themselves in grunts and sarcasm. You quickly learn that names aren't a big deal out here. Nicknames like Grease Tooth and No Toes are more common. They ignore the godlike figure after hauling him on board, already dreaming of ransoms and maybe, if they're lucky, wine. You notice they don't tie him up. He just sits at the bow, gazing serenely into the sea, like it's telling him a story in return. The ship creaks and groans as it turns back to open water. You find a seat by a crate of old fishing nets and try to blend in. You are not technically part of this crew, but nobody's kicked you off yet. You figure you'll just see where this goes, which is a very risky philosophy. In both life and ancient mythology, as the sun dips lower, you start to get the feeling that maybe these pirates have made a mistake. For one thing, your strange fellow passenger hasn't blinked in the last half hour. For another, there are vines creeping up the sides of the mast. Actual grapevines, with actual grapes the pirates haven't noticed yet. They're too busy arguing over who gets how much of the ransom money, despite not even knowing who their captive is, where he's from, or if anyone would pay to get him back. One of them, a tall, wiry guy with a voice like crushed gravel, mutters, "This one's too calm." I don't like it. You agree silently, but at the same time, you feel oddly safe. It's like sitting next to a thunderstorm that hasn't decided to happen yet. The god, because at this point, let's be real, you're pretty sure that's what he is. Leans back and smiles. You're all very entertaining, he says softly, to no one in particular. A few of the pirates laugh, but you see it how one of them suddenly shivers, as if touched by cold fingers down the spine. How another suddenly looks up and mutters a quick prayer under his breath, just in case. That's when you realize something is coming, and you are not going to want to miss it. The pirates are too busy congratulating themselves to notice the way the air has started to thicken like molasses laced with sea mist. You sit still, eyes on the horizon, which is beginning to ripple in that weird way heat does. Except it's not hot anymore. In fact, you're getting goosebumps. The man's still barefoot, still humming, hasn't moved much, but somehow the shadows around him are behaving like they've been drinking. They sway too far, lag behind his movements, then snap back as if embarrassed to be caught out of sync. You overhear two pirates, Greasetooth and the one known only as Crab, arguing over whether to sell the stranger in Ephesus or Naxos. Crab says nobles fetch more in Naxos. Greasetooth says Naxos smells like goat sweat, and he refuses to go back. These are the people you are now sailing with. The plan, such as it is, involves tying the strange man up once they're out far enough, stashing him below, and pretending they rescued him from bandits. You know, the usual noble abduction playbook, but nobody's made a move yet. Something about the man is disarming. His rope shifts color with the angle of the sun, wine red in the light, almost indigo in the shade. Every now and then he tosses a grape into his mouth from somewhere. You're not sure where he's getting them, and chews like a man with nowhere to be for a century or two. Historians still argue whether this tale was a parable invented by cults to explain why dolphins are sacred to Dionysus, or whether it's a kind of initiation myth, with the pirates standing in for all foolish mortals who underestimate the divine. Either way, you are now on board a floating lesson in hubris.it. Start small. A creak from the mast. That's normal. But then the sails stop flapping. Even though the wind hasn't died, they just hang there, limp and tense at the same time. Crab frowns. That ain't right, Greasetooth growls. Probably the ropes. You don't say anything. You're watching the vines, because they've grown fast. They now snake from the base of the mast all the way up to the crow's nest, curling around the rigging like they're stretching after a nap. One of the younger pirates, probably a deckhand, judging by his lack of weaponry and surplus of freckles, points at a thick grapevine that started producing actual fruit. Were those always there? They weren't. Someone laughs nervously. Good omen. Dionysus must be smiling on us. The man at the bow, your barefoot, dazed companion snorts softly. Not quite laughter, more like a knowing sigh. Another creak. This one feels like it comes from under the ship. You glance at the waterline. Something's off. The surface is too still, the reflections too sharp, like a mirror holding its breath. Then comes the scent.it hits like a wall override grates. Sun-warmed honey. Something earthy and animal, and oddly sweet. The kind of smell that says, you're not in charge anymore. Suddenly, the deck rocks harder than it should. Someone yells. One of the crates tips and rolls. The vines now move visibly. Not just growing, moving. Curling, winding. Snaking toward anything warm. Greasetooth tries to slash one with his blade. It retracts, then reappears behind him. That's when the first animal arrives. It's a panther on a boat. You stare.so does everyone else.it just strolls onto the deck from the forecastle as if it's been lounging in the storage hold the entire time. Sleek, silent, glowing eyes, casual menace. Its tail swishes once, then twice. Then it yawns. Crab screams. Actually screams. Like a very scared, very surprised goat. You freeze, because the man at the bow is now standing, and he looks taller. Or maybe the sky just bowed to him a little. He finally speaks, soft but clear. You picked the wrong offering, boys. Someone faints. Not you, though you consider it. Historians still argue whether the animals were illusions, spirits, or divine familiars summoned by Dionysus himself. Some versions of the story say lions and leopards. Others mention snakes. One fringe theory even suggests dancing donkeys. But let's politely leave that one aside. Regardless of the version, the message is clear. The god is done playing mortal. The vines now crawl across the deck like curious toddlers. The panther circles the mast once, then sits beside the man like a house cat attending a royal speech. He smiles at you. You might want to hold onto something. You do, just in time, because with a sharp crack that seems to come from every plank. At once, the ship jolts, lurches, shivers. Not like it's breaking, more like it's waking up. One pirate yells, "It's the god. It's the wine god." Another pirate punches him and shouts, "Don't call him that to his face." Too late, Dionysus, because let's drop the pretense. You are now completely sure closes his eyes, and the sea listens. Waves rise, but they don't crash. They roll slowly, rhythmically, like they're swaying to music only the divine can hear. You hear flutes. Some were Or maybe just in your head. Your grip tightens on a beam. The pirates scatter. One leaps into the sea. Two fall over each other trying to hide under a tarp. Another tries to climb the mast but gets caught in grapevines that now sprout wine-dark flowers. And you do the only thing that seems vaguely sane. You sit down and you watch, because when a god decides to make an example out of people, sometimes the safest seat is ringside. You are still sitting, knuckles white from gripping the beam, when the ship shudders again this time, more like a sneeze than an earthquake. The panther stretches and yawns like it's bored with the whole scene. Dionysus hasn't moved. He doesn't need to not be why now. The remaining pirates have stopped pretending they're in control. The man who dove overboard, yeah, he's back, but not in the way you'd expect. You hear a splash, then another, then the unmistakable squeak chirp of a dolphin. You look over the edge of the ship. At first, nothing, just the dark blue depths gently swirling. Then you see it, a sleek grey dolphin arcing just beneath the surface. It circles once, twice, then a second dolphin joins, then a third. One of them has what looks like a very undolphin-like scar on its back, the kind of scar you remember seeing on the pirate who had tried to cheat at dice earlier. Historians still argue whether the transformation into dolphins was meant to be punishment, salvation, or something more metaphorical, an escape into a simpler, more instinctive existence. Some scholars suggest it's a reference to old Mediterranean sailor superstitions, where dolphins were omens of safety. Others think it's just Dionysus being extra on deck. The scene turns increasingly bizarre. Vines continue to unfurl in lazy spirals, now flowering with fragrant purple blossoms that pop open with soft puffs of pollen. The sails flap even though there's no wind. The mast glows faintly, and somewhere maybe in the cabin below you swear you hear a tambourine. Greasetooth hasn't transformed yet. He's clinging to a barrel, eyes darting like a cornered rat. You wonder if the dolphins are permanent or reversible. Could these men return to form? Would they want to? Dionysus strolls past you, bare feet padding silently over the vines now blanketing the deck like a floral carpet. He hums again, and this time you recognize the melody. It's the same one he hummed when you first saw him, only slower now, like it's winding down into something softer. He crouches next to a trembling pirate. You think it's the one called Button, though you've never been clear on why. The man is sobbing into his shirt. Dionysus gently boops his forehead. Swim? The god says simply, and just like that, poof dolphin. It's not instant. There's a blur, a shimmer, and a really awkward flipper stage where Button, now dolphin, flops around trying to get his bearings. But once he hits the water, he dives with a splash of undeniable grace. Another pirate sees this and decides not to wait. I regret everything, he screams as he leaps overboard. Midair, he starts to change feet, fusing, arms shortening, nose elongating into a rostrum. By the time he hits the water, he's already glistening. You glance at Dionysus. He's watching, with an expression somewhere between satisfied and vaguely amused. Like someone watching a nature documentary he's also directing. Now, there are 7 dolphins circling the ship. They chirp and squeal in weirdly musical patterns, leaping occasionally like they're practicing choreography. The god turns to you. You haven't jumped, he says. You shake your head, mouth dry. I don't really want to be a dolphin, he shrugs. Reasonable. You don't know if that means you've passed a test or just delayed the inevitable. But so far, you still have legs, and you count that as a win. A breeze kicks up warm and wine-scented. The vines sway. You feel oddly sleepy, not in a you've been up too long kind of way, but in a the universe is gently tucking you in sort of way. Dionysus walks to the bow, lifts one hand, and the dolphins vanish beneath the waves, as if seaweedy. You imagine them heading off to find a quieter sea, maybe to start a minimalist underwater jazz band. One pirate remains, Greasetooth. He's half mad with fear, clutching the barrel as if it's a life preserver and a confessional booth all at once. His eyes are wild, darting between you, Dionysus, and the grapevines. I didn't know, he cries. I didn't know it was you. Dionysus tilts his head. Didn't you? Greasetooth gulps, clearly unsure of what the correct answer is. Dionysus takes a step forward, and vines creep gently toward the barrel. But before they reach him, the pirate lets go, eyes wide in surrender, and hurls himself over the edge. There's a pause, then a splash, then silence. You wait, and sure enough, dolphin. He breaches once, spins midair, and vanishes into the blue. And just like that, the ship is quiet, just you and the god of wine, revelry, and really specific nautical punishments. You clear your throat. So, now what? Dionysus leans against the mast, wine goblet in hand. You have no idea where it came from. He takes a slow sip, squints at the horizon, and says, "Now, we lunch, of course, the sails below. The ship turns gently, and you set off toward somewhere." The vines begin to recede politely, like well-behaved party guests who've overstayed their welcome. The panther has vanished. The air clears. The smell of honey lingers. The dolphins follow behind for a time, performing lazy arcs in the waves like they're giving a farewell performance. You wave. One chirps. Maybe it's button, maybe it's crab. Hard to say. You're seated on the deck now, legs stretched out, salt drying on your skin, trying to process what just happened. Pirates turned into dolphins. A ship practically bloomed. A god conjured a storm of wine-scented weirdness, and now it's lunchtime. Yes, it is. The change is instant and strange. One blink ago, the deck was scattered with ropes and damp crates. Now, it's a floating dining room. A low table of polished wood appears in the center, surrounded by soft cushions that you swear didn't exist a breath ago. Plates of food shimmer into place, figs sliced open to reveal ruby centers. Olives glistening with oil. Bread still steaming as if it just left an oven that surely doesn't exist anywhere on board. There's goat cheese drizzled with honey. A pile of pomegranates, and yes, an entire roast duck with oranges stuffed inside like it's preparing for a tropical vacation. You blink again. Your plate's already full. Dionysus is across from you, sipping wine that pours itself whenever his cup is half empty. He doesn't say much, just watches you with those half-lidded eyes like he's gauging whether you're amused, impressed, or simply vibrating with mild terror. You are, of course, all three. You reach for the bread. It's warm, soft, the kind of perfect bread that makes you wonder if you've ever actually tasted bread before. The cheese melts on your tongue. The duck, crispy on the outside, tender inside, with spices you can't name, but instantly want to bathe in. Historians still argue whether this moment, the so-called divine meal at sea, was meant to represent a communion ritual or just Dionysus flexing his hospitality. Either way, it's clear you're not being punished. You're being hosted, possibly seduced, spiritually, if not literally. A breeze lifts your hair. The table seems to sway ever so slightly, but your plate never slides, and your wine glass never tips. The ship rocks gently like a cradle. Dionysus speaks. They never ask. He says. You pause mid-bite. Ask what? He tilts his head. Who I am. They assume. They fear. They scheme. But they don't ask. You chew. Swallow. Consider your words. Would you tell them if they did? He smiles. No, of course. He waves a hand, and a cluster of grapes floats toward you, stopping mid-air like they're waiting for permission to be eaten. You pop one into your mouth. It's better than a grape has any right to be. Plump, sweet, with a hint of jasmine and something that feels like a memory you can't quite name. Why me? You ask. Dionysus shrugs. You didn't flinch. That's rare. You think back to the shore, to the pirates, to the vines and the panther and the awkward flipper phase. You did flinch though, multiple times. Maybe you didn't notice. You say quietly. He raises a brow. Oh, I noticed. But you stayed anyway. That's the bit that counts. He taps his cup with one finger. It refills. You glance at your own goblet, and before you can decide whether to drink or not, it fills too with something golden, sparkling, and bubbling with tiny whispers. Try it, he says, almost like a dare. You take a sip. Instant warmth. Not the burning of strong alcohol, but a velvety calm that moves from your chest to your limbs, like being wrapped in a memory of every time you ever felt safe. You close your eyes, and you feel it. The ship still glides, but the water sings beneath you. The sails hum a soft note. In the distance, something like laughter rolls across the waves. You open your eyes again. A deer walks across the deck. You are not sure from where, or why, or how, but it pads calmly past the table, nods respectfully at Dionysus, and disappears down a staircase that you're fairly certain didn't exist before. You look at him. He's not surprised. Just sipping. How many animals do you keep on this boat? You ask. He taps his lip. Hard to say. They come and go. The panther reappears briefly to steal a fig from your plate. You decide not to object. It's not worth dying over a piece of fruit. A tambourine jingles in the distance again. Then a flute joins. You look around for musicians, see no one. But the music plays on. Is this a feast? You ask. He considers. No, just lunch. You'd know if it were a feast. Well then, One of the dolphins leaps beside the boat, spinning once. Another chirps in what can only be described as a major key. They're still trailing you, sleek and joyful, a watery procession of formerly greedy men who now seem thrilled to spend the rest of their days doing tricks and eating fish. You ask, will they stay dolphins forever? Dionysus leans back. Some of them, others might grow legs again. Depends on what they learn. You want to ask what you are supposed to learn, but you know better. You'll get riddles, not answers. So instead, you ask, why wine? He raises an eyebrow. Excuse me, I mean, you say, gesturing vaguely, why be the god of wine? A long pause, then he chuckles. Because wine is a door. It lets people slip out of themselves, into joy, into madness, into truth. You sip. Again. You don't fully understand, but you're beginning to feel like maybe that's okay. The table begins to dissolve gently, like mist evaporating in the sun. The plates vanish. The crumbs roll off into nothing. Only your cup remains, still half full. Dionysus stands, stretches, and looks off into the horizon. It's time, he says. Time for what? He grins. To sail somewhere less predictable. You sigh. Less than this? Oh yes, he says. Much less. The ship shifts subtly. The sky dims slightly, but the sea turns lavender. You stand up slowly, wine in hand. Whatever comes next, it's not going to make sense, but it will be something. You think you're ready for anything now. After all, you've seen pirates turn into dolphins, lunched with a god who casually warps time, and watched a deer navigate a ship's deck like it was late to a dinner party. But what happens next somehow still defies your expectations and common logic. Dionysus, barefoot and graceful as always, saunters toward the bow. The sails snap once, not from wind, but in what feels like applause. The ship turns on a dime, no warning, no creaking, just a polite shift of direction, like it's following a whispered command you didn't hear. The god pauses, then casually runs a hand down the mast, and the ship groans, not in pain, more like in pleasure, like it's been waiting for this. The air thickens, not hot, not humid, just heavy, like it's suddenly carrying secrets. You glance behind you. The sea is still calm, dolphins chattering cheerfully as they weave in your wake. But ahead, the sky has gone velvety and purple, a strange twilight that shouldn't be. There, it's the middle of the day, but the light changes anyway, slanting sideways, making shadows behave like they've got somewhere better to be. Then Dionysus does something so simple, so small, and yet it shifts everything. He takes off his robe, grand gesture, no dramatic flourish. He just shrugs it off and tosses it onto a nearby bench, revealing a plain linen tunic underneath. And yet, somehow, you feel like the universe just exhaled, and then he turns. He looks at you, not past you, not through you, but at you, and in that moment, you understand. You are now sitting in the presence of Dionysus, revealed no longer the dazed wanderer with wine-stained lips and sleepy eyes. No, this version of him is brighter, sharper, still playful, still lounging within himself, but also full of crackling potential energy, like a bonfire just before it roars. The vines that had shriveled earlier suddenly bloom again. A golden crown of ivy materializes atop his curls. His tunic sparkles ever so faintly, like it's woven from thread dipped in starlight and fermented joy. You know, he says, his voice now deeper, richer, like velvet soaked in thunder. I don't usually travel with company. You smile. Nervously. Yeah, I gathered that. But I suppose, he continues, almost to himself, you've earned it. Or maybe you're just curious enough to be interesting. That last bit, you definitely take as a compliment. Historians still argue whether this reveal in the myth was symbolic of madness setting in, or of enlightenment. Was Dionysus showing his true nature to punish or to elevate? It's unclear. What is clear is that in this moment, the air is charged, and your pulse is alarmingly synchronized with the rhythm of the waves. He walks past you again, and as he does, a lion appears. Yes, a full-sized, golden-maned lion, just padding along beside him like a large, affectionate puppy. The panther from before reappears on his other side, tail twitching. You resist the urge to ask where these animals are coming from. At this point, that feels like asking where wind comes from. Instead, you watch, and so does the sky. Most mortals only know me as the wine guy, he says, almost wistfully. They forget the rest. You tilt your head. The rest. His gaze flicks toward the water, where the dolphins have stopped jumping. Now they're circling slowly, heads above the surface like they're listening. I am the god of ecstasy, he says, an illusion of chaos and clarity, of theatre and truth, the boundary between madness and revelation. That's my domain. Oh, well, you take another sip from your goblet, which, somehow, is still in your hand. It tastes different now, brighter, like sunlight distilled into gold. Dionysus stretches his arms wide, and the sky obeys. Clouds swirl inward, not menacingly, but curiously, like shy guests approaching a feast. You feel no threat, only anticipation. Then the lions vanish. So does the panther. A dozen doves appear, flying in lazy spirals above the mast. You blink. They're gone again. You rub your eyes. They're back, but now they're tiny musicians, each playing minuscule instruments no bigger than your thumbnail. You blink again. Nope. Back to birds. You look at Dionysus, who is now laughing softly. You see, he says, the world isn't stable. Mortals just pretend it is. That one head's different. You glance at your hands. Still solid. Still your own. But for the first time, you wonder if they'll stay that way. A breeze flutters across the ship, carrying with it the scent of smoke, salt, and faintly cinnamon. The ship shifts course again. You're heading toward an island now, one that wasn't there before. Or maybe it was, but only for people in the right state of mind. You don't ask where you're going, partly because you're not sure he'll answer, but mostly because, somehow, you don't want to know. The sea glows faintly beneath you. Plankton, maybe. Or magic. The sky lightens at the edges again. The strange twilight retreating. The ship slows, as though gliding into a dream. It doesn't want to end too abruptly. Dionysus sits again, legs crossed, cup in hand. He grins at you, wine dribbling slightly down one corner of his mouth. Now you've seen it. A peek. That's all. Any more and you'd crack open like a bad melon. Good to know, you mutter, brain still trying to catch up. He raises a brow. Not bad, necessarily. Just messy. The island draws closer. You hear birdsong that doesn't match any bird you know. You hear laughter from somewhere beyond the trees. And you feel something tugging inside you, not fear, not desire. But that's strange. Still feeling when you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Even if you can't explain why, you're about to dock, and your host seems amused. The ship glides into a cove that seems to exist between seconds, tucked into a fold of time so precise that when you step ashore, you are not entirely sure the world is still operating under the same rules. The sand is pale, almost silver. It shimmers when you move, not like glitter, but like memory. Trees line the edge of the beach, tall, soft-leaved things with bark the color of toasted almonds and branches that sway even though there's no breeze. A few flowers bloom at your feet, then vanish when you look directly at them. And then, just to round things out, a goat strolls by wearing what looks suspiciously like reading glasses. You blink. It nods at you profoundly, then trots off into the forest. You follow Dionysus up a winding path lined with low stone walls covered in moss that smells like old books and sugar. The god walks barefoot still, and wherever he steps, the moss fluffs up like it's happy to be crushed by divine toes. And no animals leap out. No vines attack. It's quiet, eerily so, but also gentle, peaceful in that strange, you're being watched by something ancient that doesn't want to hurt you kind of way. This place isn't on any map. Is it? You ask. Dionysus smiles sideways. Depends whose map you're using. Historians still argue over the identity of this island. Some believe it's a symbolic version of Naxos, the place where Dionysus supposedly found Ariadne after Theseus bailed. Others say it's a completely fictional location, a divine dream space for initiates and lunatics. One particularly rogue scholar once suggested it was a metaphor for retirement. He was politely ignored. The trail opens onto a small plateau. There's a circle of carved stones like a miniature amphitheater, but the seats face inward, not out. A single fig tree stands at the center, its branches unnaturally still, as if frozen mid-thought. Dionysus sits cross-legged on one of the stones. You join him, not quite sure if you're about to be tested, blessed, or serenaded. He pulls something from the folds of his tunic, a tambourine. He holds it out. You hesitate. What am I supposed to do with this? Shake it, that's it. No riddle, no ceremony, just shake it. SOU2.IT jingles once light and harmless, then again, then suddenly the air jingles with it. You stop, startled, but the sound continues. A rhythm picks up from nowhere. Drums, distant and low, a flute or two, winding like ivy. The moss shivers underfoot. The fig tree trembles. Then, without warning, you're surrounded by dancers. Not humans. Not animals. Shadows, but not creepy shadows. These flicker with laughter, with rhythm, with music. They dance around you, through you. Not cold or heavy, but warm, inviting. They wear masks of some goat, some lion, some human, but their eyes are bright pinpricks of starlight. Don't think, Dionysus says. Just move, and somehow, you do. You're dancing, or something like it. The tambourine guides you. Or maybe it's the other way around. The shadows laugh, but not at you. The music rises, falls, spins. Your heartbeat sinks with it. Your feet forget hesitation. Even gravity seems optional now. You sway, skip, turn, and you laugh. Really laugh. Like you haven't in ages. Dionysus watches, smiling gently, like a teacher watching a student finally get it. And then, just as suddenly, it all stops. The shadows vanish. The music fades like someone slowly blowing out a candle. You are left, standing there, alone except for Dionysus and the fig tree, which now bears exactly one golden fruit. You breathe hard. You feel warm, flushed, happy, and slightly dizzy. What was that? You ask. He leans back on his elbows. A little rehearsal. For what? He just sips his wine. Classic. You sit down again, still holding the tambourine. It doesn't jingle anymore. It feels quiet, content, like it's a sleep dot in the silence. That follows. You become aware of something else. The sounds of this island aren't entirely natural. There are layers to the silence, soft murmurs under the wind, faint laughter under the rustle of trees, and that philosophical goat with glasses. Yeah, it's watching you from the edge of the clearing, chewing slowly like it's contemplating Pythagoras. You nod at it. It nods back. Respect, you ask. How long are we staying here? Dionysus shrugs. Until you're ready. For what? Another shrug. Departure. Return. Enlightenment. Or maybe you'll just stay. You raise an eyebrow. People stay? Oh yes, he says. Some never leave. They become myths, trees, winds, recipes. That last one throws you. Recipes, millimeters hem. There's a stew in Thessaly that used to be a man named Alexios. Terrific fellow. Bit salty, though. You stare at him. He doesn't blink. Right. Never ask a god a question you aren't prepared to hear the answer to. A dove lands on your shoulder. You let it sit there. It coos once, as if in approval. You rest the tambourine in your lap, and for the first time all day, you feel still, not nervous, not confused, just still. You wake to the sound of flapping, not the soft flutter of wings, more like the chaotic slap, slap, slap of someone trying to fly with too many elbows. You sit up, tambourine still balanced in your lap, and squint toward the tree line. There they are. Dolphins. Well, sort of. Remember the pirates from earlier? The ones who were halfway through a mythological HR intervention. Yeah, they're back. And they're in a weird stage of becoming dolphins. Again, see, it turns out metamorphosis isn't always a one-way ticket in Dionysus's world. Especially when the god's feeling playful, or philosophical, or maybe just bored. One of them flops sideways into a shrub, cursing in what sounds like ancient Etruscan. His nose is mostly snout, but he's still got arms. Another has a full dorsal fin sprouting from his back, which makes sitting quite uncomfortable. A third stumbles into the clearing, chirping by accident every time he exhales. You stand. Is this supposed to be happening? Dionysus appears behind you with a handful of olives and a look of mild amusement. They're recalibrating. To what? He pops an olive in his mouth and speaks around it. To their better selves. Historians still debate the moral of the dolphin transformation myth. Was Dionysus rewarding mercy or punishing arrogance? Were the pirates just hapless pawns? Or was it a symbolic story about shedding human corruption for animal simplicity? There's even a theory suggesting the entire tale was propaganda to explain why dolphins liked helping stranded sailors. A very cute form of myth-based peer. Either way, it's awkward to watch in real time. One of the flopping pirates now 75% dolphin. 25% confused. Dad looks at you and chirps something that almost sounds like help. You turn to Dionysus. Can they understand me? Emotionally. Probably. Linguistically. Depends how fluent you are in aquatic regret. The pirates finally settle into dolphin form. More or less. Sleek grey-blue, with eyes that somehow retain a trace of their human history. One of them does a slow spin in the shallow water near the cove's edge and trills with delight. See? Dionysus says. They're getting the hang of it. You approach the shore. One of the dolphin men circles close, then nudges a smooth stone toward your foot. It's flat and black, shaped like a heart, or maybe a kidney. You pick it up. It's warm. Do they remember everything? Dionysus strolls up beside you. Some do. Some forget by choice. Others evolve. You glance back at the tree line. So why did you bring them here? They needed a place to flounder. Literally and spiritually. You smirk. That sounds suspiciously like Mercy. He shrugs. Mercy and mischief are cousins. At least, at my house. You spend the rest of the morning watching the dolphin men experiment with their bodies. There's a lot of slapping, slipping, and surprised clicking, but also joy, playfulness. One of them discovers he can leap through a rock arch if he builds up enough momentum. Another starts making bubbles that spiral in lazy coils. A pod of real dolphins shows up later. They pause, clearly surprised, and then merge with the group as if they've always been family. The ex-pirates fit in seamlessly, and honestly, it's beautiful. There's a peculiar comfort in knowing that these once dangerous men have found peace in a body built for laughter and current chasing. You watch them glide and whistle, dart and dive. Their movements are poetry now. One even surfaces with a kelp hat balanced on his head. Dionysus claps, delighted. Yes, fashion. You sit cross-legged at the water's edge, tambourine in your lap, head tilted to the sun. A thought hits you. If you can turn them into dolphins, you ask, could you turn me into something? He doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he kneels beside you and cups a handful of seawater. Everything turns, he says. But not everything needs to. You let the words hang there for a while. Then, so, what do I need? He grins. That's the question, isn't it? There's a long pause. The waves are soft today. The dolphins are starting to hum yes, hum in a low, echoing rhythm that vibrates right through the soles of your feet. You're not going to answer. That, are you? Nope. Classic. The dolphins perform one final spin as the sun begins to dip low over the cove. The light turns golden, then apricot, then a soft honey pink. You catch your own reflection in the water, and you don't look different. Not exactly, but something in your eyes is quieter, calmer. You breathe, the goat reappears, this time with a small flute tucked under its chin. It bleats once, then walks off. You don't even question it anymore. You're learning. You wake up with seafoam in your hair. Again at this point. It feels like an ongoing relationship. The seafoam even seems to know your name now. You sit up, brushing off a few sand fleas, and realize there's not a soul in sight. No Dionysus. No goat. No philosophical snakes. No dolphins doing synchronized sea yoga. Just you, your slightly dented tambourine, and a breakfast of a fig balanced on a rock. Still warm, possibly enchanted. Smells like lavender and bizarrely cinnamon toast. You glance around. Guys, silence for a long, glittering moment. The island is still, then the waves whisper something. You can't quite tell if it's your name or just the usual sea stuff, like sesh. This is about mood, not plot. You pick up the fig. It's excellent. Not too sweet, a little earthy. There's even a drizzle of what you hope is honey and not some kind of divine sap. And then it hits you. You're alone, not like abandoned alone. More like hand-selected to be the last person standing in an ancient god's immersive art installation alone. You call out again, still no response. Just gulls circling high above, and that one tree in the distance that seems to be waving? No, probably just the wind. Probably. You decide to walk. As you move through the island's softer corners, something odd starts to settle in. Time feels different, like it's taking a nap. The sun hovers in this strange mid-morning forever, casting shadows that never quite stretch or shrink. Every step sounds like it was recorded for a meditation app. Crunch, swoosh, crunch, swoosh. Eventually, you find a new part of the island. A crescent beach you're pretty sure wasn't there yesterday. On the sand, scrawled in a perfect spiral, made of seashells, are the words, stay interesting. You sigh, cryptic much, but admitted you smile a little. And then, on the horizon, you see it, a tiny shape bobbing. At first, you think it's a cloud, then maybe a rock. But slowly, it becomes unmistakable. A boat. One of those dinky, sad ones, and it's drifting your way. You walk down the beach to meet it. This thing is barely seaworthy, stitched together from palm bark, grapevines, and what looks suspiciously like former pieces of a banquet table. The sail is a repurposed toga. You're almost afraid. It's powered by pure whimsy, and waiting inside, a note, scrawled in wine-dark ink. Your stop is soon. Don't fall asleep on the way.
Deep below that, someone's drawn a little doodle of a dolphin wearing sunglasses. You take a breath. The boat rocks gently, inviting you aboard. You hesitate. This whole experience has been, let's say, a touch surreal.
You've eaten food that may have been hallucinated into existence. You've watched people slowly turn into marine mammals. You've been handed a tambourine by a deity. And now you're being told your stop is soon, which is either poetic or ominous, depending on the punctuation. Still, what else are you going to do? You board. The boat rocks again, steadier this time, as if relieved.
It floats away from the island effortlessly.
No oars, no rudder, just intention. And as you drift further out to sea, something strange starts to unfold in the waves around you. First, tiny flashes of light beneath the surface. Then, a pattern. Swirls, ribbons, whole constellations of glittering algae form images beneath the water, like a film reel of everything you've just experienced. You see the pirates. Mid-flip, you see Dionysus juggling olives. You see the goat playing the flute badly. You see yourself from above, curled on the sand like punctuation at the end of a very long sentence. Then, all at once gone, just water again, historian still. Argue whether this myth ever had a moral or just vibes.
Some say it's about reverence. Some say it's about transformation.
Others insist it's simply a story meant to entertain tipsy dinner guests at symposiums.
One fringe theory proposes
the entire tale was an ancient hallucination brought on by mouldy barley. But you know what you saw, what you felt. The boat glides past a jellyfish. It tips its bell politely. You nod back, dolphin surface in the distance. A couple wave fins. One tries to cartwheel, fails. Tries again. And then you're alone again. The sea stretches wide and quiet, and the sky is beginning to deepen. The sun moves for the first time all day, slipping just slightly low. You think about what Dionysus said, that not everything needs to turn, but maybe some things choose to. Like you, the wind picks up. The sail flaps gently. You wrap the toga sail
around your shoulders like a blanket and lean back.
The boat creaks reassuringly and begins to angle toward what looks like a faint outline of land in the distance dot. It might be your home dot. It might be something else entirely. Either way. Yeah, ready.
You wake up to music. Not the kind blaring from speakers or piped in by ambitious seagulls.
No, this is softer, older.
Plucked strings and something like flutes, or maybe just reeds humming in the wind.
There's a rhythm to it, like your heartbeat. If it had spent the morning sipping wine, you blink and sit up. The boat has docked. Sort of. There's no harbour, no ropes or bustling dockworkers. Just a gently bobbing patch of land that looks suspiciously like a picnic blanket the size of a meadow. You step off, the grass is warm,
slightly spongy,
smells faintly of thyme and old wine barrels.
And there, waiting under a striped canopy,
made from some creature's impossibly soft wool, is a feast. You're not alone. Dionysus is already lounging, of course.
Half reclined, one arm tucked behind his head, the other balancing a goblet with impossible casualness. He sees you and grins like he's been expecting you for years. Hope you're hungry, he says, gesturing broadly. I told the meadow. You were coming. You raise a brow.
You told the meadow? He lifts a vine-wrapped fork with a flourish. She listens. You glance at the spread.
It's absurd. There are clusters of figs, still dewy, piles of stuffed dates, little bowls of soft cheese that change colour when you stir them,
a roast bird the size of a cat that seems to be breathing out little puffs of rosemary steam, and yes, a loaf of bread that hums faintly when broken. You sit, mostly because your legs give out from confusion. I thought you'd enjoy a moment, Dionysus says, sipping deeply. After all the pirate stuff, you eye him. You knew they were pirates?
He grins, grape juice staining the corners of his mouth.
Of course, I get kidnapped all the time.
It's practically a rite of passage at this point. You frown.
That seems like a problem, eh? He shrugs. I'm the god of theatre, among other things. Sometimes you have to let the show play out. You take a bite of cheese dot. It tastes like sunshine on stone, and a very soft memory you didn't know you had. So, you say slowly, this is just lunch.
Oh no, he says.
This is a moment. He waves his hand, and a breeze rolls in carrying the faint sound of laughter and flutes. In the distance, a group of satyrs somersault down a grassy hill, colliding in a heap of horns
and giggles.
One of them starts juggling pomegranates badly. A lion yawns nearby, curls up, and starts purring like a large, murdery kitten. You chew, then, a bit hesitantly, you ask, Why am I still here? Dionysus studies you because you're fun. He says simply, you blink. Not heroic, not wise,
Not even particularly brave.
but you're fun, and the world needs fun. He stretches, reaching toward a bowl of pickled olives.
Most mortals, when they see a god, panic, try to flee, or fall to their knees and start reciting awkward poetry.
You try to make conversation. You ate the magic cheese. You danced. With a goat. Technically, the goat danced on me. He smiles. Even better. You pause, looking out across the strange picnicscape. Is this forever?
He laughs a rich, low sound like thunder on vacation.
No, just a pause. A breath between stories. But you needed it. You've been running without realizing. And don't get me wrong, chasing purpose is adorable. But sometimes, darling, you need to chase a nap. He raises his glass. To naps. You clink your goblet against his. The wine tastes like night air, and the first time you realized figs had wasps in them and didn't care. Historians still argue whether this part of the myth, the picnic, the philosophy, the unusually chill lion was added later. Some say it's symbolic of rebirth.
Others argue it's allegorical for the agricultural cycle. One particularly unpopular theory claims the entire scene is a coded recipe for hallucinogenic jam. But none of that matters now, because you're
here, warm and fed, swaying gently to music that may or may not be coming from inside your own memory. Dionysus leans back and sighs. Soon, he says, you'll be ready to go back. You glance at him. To what? He shrugs. Whatever
comes next. The world hasn't changed.
Just you. You frown. That sounds like a fortune cookie. He grins again. That infuriating, charming, ageless grin. I am older than fortune cookies. You laugh. It feels easy here. You lie back, resting your head on a cushion of vines and moss. The sky overhead shifts between shades of amber and rose.
You close your eyes, just for a second.
The grass hums, somewhere nearby. A tambourine jingles softly on the breeze, and in that moment, you realize something. This wasn't a detour. This was the journey, and it's not over yet. The sun hangs lazily overhead now, not quite moving, as if it too has decided to take a moment. The breeze dances around your ears with the soft hush of whispered jokes you're not quite meant to understand. Your stomach is full. Your body light.
Dionysus hasn't moved much. He's leaned further back, one sandal dangling from his toe, staring into the sky like it's retelling his favorite soap opera.
You try not to fidget.
You try to mirror his ease.
You last about 9 seconds. So, what now? You ask eventually. He blinks at you. Oh, I thought you'd want to ask questions. Mortals always ask questions. You sit up slightly, brushing a bit of thick syrup off your elbow.
I mean, I do.
Sort of.
Yes, he grins.
Good. Ask. You hesitate. Why dolphins? He cackles, nearly spilling his wine. That's your first question, not where am I?
Or how do I get home?
Or please, kind sir, return me to the laws of physics. No, you want to know why I turned pirates into dolphins?
Well, yeah. He nods approvingly. Fair enough.
Truth is, I like dolphins. They're clever,
Social.
delightfully rude, and those pirates needed a new job.
Pillaging is so last era, so they're still alive. Oh, yes, he says, gesturing vaguely toward the sea.
Some were.
Probably bullying tuna and composing sea shanties. You try to picture it.
One of the pirates who once tried to stab a lion is now clicking at mackerel with his pod. It's comforting.
Kind of. And me.
You ask, why not dolphin me too? He smiles.
Because you didn't try to chain a god. You laughed when I turned the mast into ivy.
You tried to save the goat, even when it was tap dancing on your spine.
You were curious.
You passed the wine test. You blink. There was a test. Always, he says seriously. Gods love tests.
But we hate
Paperwork, so we keep them informal. You lie back again. So, who are you really? Dionysus stretches lazily.
Depends on who's asking. To some, I'm the wine god.
To others, the chaos maker.
The bringer of ecstasy. The patron of theatre. The one who whispers through masks.
I am the boundary and the breaking of it. I am the vine and the knife that cuts it. You let that sink in, okay? You say after a moment.
But why the tambourine?
He grins.
Because nothing says divine mischief like jingling percussion. You're quiet for a while.
Somewhere nearby, a fox climbs a tree, which should be biologically impossible. But hey Dionysus, finally, you ask, so what's the point of all this? He chuckles. The point? Oh, darling, that's the most mortal question of all. You glance at him. Is that bad? Not at all, he says. Just predictable. He rolls onto his side, propping his head up with one hand.
Look, there's not always a point.
Sometimes the story is the point.
You board a ship.
You meet a stranger. The grapes come alive. The pirates start barking.
You survive.
You nap. You ask questions.
You eat cheese that sings lullabies. You pause. The cheese what? He waves a hand. Minor detail. You let out a long breath.
Historians would hate this. Oh, they do, he says cheerfully. They still argue whether I was ever real, whether the dolphin bit was metaphor.
Whether I am just collective wine trauma personified. You
raise an eyebrow. Are you?
He takes a slow sip, letting the moment stretch thin like syrup. Maybe.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm just this moment. Right now. With you. A bird with so many feathers and suspiciously human eyes waddles past, dragging a vine behind it like a leash. You and Dionysus both pretend not to notice. So what am I supposed to do? You ask, genuinely this time. He tilts his head. Anything you want. Sing,
Sleep.
wander, pick a fight with a metaphor.
Or don't.
Just be.
That's the hardest thing for your kind. Being? Yes, you're always doing.
Always chasing a next. You see the world like a hallway full of
Locked doors. You want keys.
gods see it more like a garden,
Unpredictable. Messy. Cyclical.
but every so often quiet. You absorb that in silence. The air is thick with lavender and something else, maybe cinnamon.
Maybe memory.
So, you say slowly.
This is a vacation.
He leans close. This is a reminder of what? He winks. That even pirates have potential.
That even wine has logic. That even you little traveler, little thinker can be part of something divine. You sit with that for a while. Then, you still didn't answer my question. He squints.
Which one? All of them. He throws back his head and laughs. Oh, sweet mortal, he says, standing and stretching his arms wide. That's
How gods work. He walks toward the edge of the floating island, where the grass thins into mist. You follow, a little unsteady on your feet. He stops, turns. Oh, he says, pulling something from behind his back.
It's the tambourine. This is yours now. You stare.
What am I supposed to do with this? He shrugs.
Whatever you like, or nothing. I'm not your dad. You take it. Still confused. Do you always leave mortals with percussion instruments? He grins. Only the fun ones. Then he steps into the mist and vanishes. Just like that. You're alone on a floating island, holding a divine tambourine, full of hallucinatory cheese, and very few answers, and somehow it feels right. The mist lingers long after Dionysus disappears.
It curls around your feet like a cat made of breath, cool and deliberate, tugging at the edges of what you thought you understood. You stare at the spot where he vanished. No puff of smoke. No theatrical exit music.
Just gone. You're still holding the tambourine. It feels different now. Heavier.
Or maybe denser, like it's picked up the weight of everything you've just seen.
You give it a tentative shake. Nothing. Well, not nothing. The silence it produces feels intentional. Like the instrument is politely refusing to perform until the timing is just right. Typical. You look around the floating island. The picnic is
Still their grapes rolling idly in a golden bowl. The fig tree humming a lullaby only trees can hear.
the satyrs are gone. The lion too. Only that strange fox from earlier remains, lying on its back in the sun, snoring. You're not quite sure what to do with yourself. The edge of the island seems closer than before.
As you wander toward it, you notice the grass thinning again, blurring into mist until there's no more ground, so much as suggested surface.
Beyond that,
A vast blankness, not threatening,
not empty, just
blank.
like a scroll waiting for the next part of a story. And then you hear it. A voice, not Dionysus, not one you recognize at all.
It's more like your own, filtered through.
Water and moonlight.
Faint,
Soft.
but definitely there. Step forward. You freeze.
Is that you again?
Silence, then. Step forward.
The tambourine hums faintly in your hand. You take one step. The mist parts like curtains. And suddenly, you're somewhere else. It takes you a second to process it. One moment, you're on a wine-scented picnic island. The next inside a grand old theatre. The kind with velvet curtains, flickering candlelight, and balconies carved from marble and myth. It's empty. Completely, except for you. And the stage, which is set for something. You walk toward it. The tambourine now swings from your wrist like a charm.
There's a warmth in your chest you hadn't noticed before, like you've been filled up with invisible wine.
Not drunk, just glowing. You stand center stage. A spotlight flicks on from nowhere. You squint into the darkness, half expecting Dionysus to be reclining in the front row, tossing grapes into his mouth and scoring your posture. But no, just shadows, then applause, soft, muffled,
as if from another room.
or another time, and with that, the stage begins to change, slowly, silently. The wood under your feet shifts,
It becomes a sheep's deck, familiar.
rocking gently. The smell of salt and pine fills the air.
A gull.
Cries. Far off, someone laughs. A pirate. A god? Hard to say. You look down. Your feet are bare again. Your clothes those of the sailor you were at the beginning of all this, and suddenly, it's all back the moment Dionysus appeared. The panic, the vines, the lion. The song, all of it swirling like a storm in a bottle. Historians still argue whether myths like these were meant to be linear narratives or cyclical experiences. Some suggest they're metaphors for madness, others for transformation.
A few believe they're simply invitations openings for the listener to step into another version of reality, just long enough to loosen the hold of the ordinary. You take a breath, the stage becomes the sea becomes the stars, and
You're both the sailor and the audience now, watching and being watched.
living and remembering, and somehow knowing. The tambourine jingles once, a soft, clear note, and with it, you understand something. This was never about Dionysus.
Not really. This was about you. The way you navigate the unexpected. The way you respond to magic when it interrupts your scheduled programming. The way you laugh when you are not sure if you're supposed to.
A second spotlight flicks on. Empty, then a third. Empty. More follow, dotting the stage around you like breadcrumbs.
One by one, you walk toward them. Each time you step into the light, you remember a moment. The goats dance. The pirates' confused chirps. The breathing fig tree. The wine that tasted like a feeling. Each moment ridiculous. Beautiful, strange is somehow a key. Not to a grand puzzle. Not to some cosmic revelation. Just to you. You step into the final spotlight, and everything stops. You hear one last thing. Not from Dionysus. Not from yourself. Just a whisper, low and full of old laughter. Good story. And then blackness. Not scary. Not sad. Just still. You're sitting on the stage again. Tambourine in your lap. Head bowed. You're smiling. You blink slowly in the stillness, only to find the spotlight fading around you.
As the light dims, so does the texture of the world.
The stage softens beneath your hands. The velvet shadows around you dissolve into mist again. Familiar now.
Like a dream gently picking up where it left off. You're no longer on the stage. You're back on that bizarre floating island. You're not sure how long you've been sitting here. Minutes?
Years?
Time moves like honey in this place, thick and slow and somehow a little sticky. The tambourine lies next to you, glittering faintly in the light of a sun that doesn't seem to move. You rise. Your legs are a little stiff.
That might be from sitting, or from divine theta-induced existential compression. Hard to say. Ahead, beyond the picnic site, and its suspiciously untouched cheese platter, lies the edge of the island again, except now you can see something new just past it. A dock. You could swear it wasn't there before.
Narrow, knotted together, with rope and driftwood, and gently bobbing with the rhythm of an invisible tide. It leads down to a small boat tied to a post. An absurdly small boat. Like, two people in a tight hug would feel it small. You hesitate. And then you hear something even stranger than Dionysus turning pirates into aquatic mammals. A goat clears its throat. You turn, and yes, there it is.
A goat, wearing a laurel wreath and a bored expression. It gives you a long, thoughtful stare,
Then tilts its head toward the boat, as if to say, well, you coming or what? Do I row?
You ask it, mostly out of polite confusion. The goat nods, then produces a long, thin scroll from somewhere behind its back. You don't question that part. At this point, you've surrendered your expectations. The scroll is labeled in delicate, curly script, instructions for how not to die at sea. Volume 2. You glance at the goat.
What happened to Volume I?
The goat shrugs, which is unsettling.
Because goats aren't supposed to shrug.
Misplaced, of course it was. You accept the scroll and step gingerly onto the dock.
It creaks dramatically.
The boat rocks once, then settles as if deciding not to eat you yet. With one deep breath, you climb in. The goat remains on the dock, chewing something invisible and watching you like an indifferent librarian. You untie the rope and push off, and the island recedes. Immediately, the boat picks up speed. Not from the oars, you haven't touched them, but from some unseen current.
The mist parts.
The sky turns a faint violet. Like the moment just before dusk remembers it has to turn into night. The tambourine is still in your lap. It hasn't made a sound, but it feels heavier now.
Like it's storing a whole evening's worth of unreleased.
Applause. The scroll, despite being a full 2 meters long, contains only 3 lines. Don't name the fish. If the sky starts to sing, close your eyes.
You'll know when you're close to leaving. You nod solemnly.
Because frankly, this all tracks. The sea, at first, is silent. Then not quite. A gentle humming starts to ripple through the waves. Not
Threatening.
not loud, just
Vaguely catchy.
the kind of melody you hum without realizing. Like elevator music in an underwater palace. And then the fish appear, dozens of them.
Maybe hundreds. Neon bright and slow moving. Like bored tourists on a gentle theme park ride. You do not name them. One of them swims a little too close and gives you a look, a judging look. But you maintain eye contact with the horizon and remind yourself.
This is still better than tax season. Historians still argue whether Dionysus' journey with the pirates was an isolated prank or part of a wider cultic pattern. Some interpret it as a metaphor for spiritual transformation mortals resisting the divine, only to be literally reshaped by it.
Others argue it's just a classic Greek warning. Don't mess with strange. Barefoot men in nice robes. The boat begins to slow. A smell touches the air.
Wood smoke,
Olive oil.
fresh bread, land, real land, not mystical, fine draped, possibly made of dreams land, actual coastline. You recognize it immediately. It's not exactly your home, but it feels like it. A sleepy harbour town with chipped stone buildings and crooked docks.
A cat stretches under a lemon tree. A distant baker shouts at a pigeon. You smile. The boat gently bumps the shore, and for the first time in what feels like 100 years, and also 5 minutes, you step onto solid ground. Immediately, something is different. The wind feels more.
Normal, less like a voice.
More like just weather. You look down at yourself.
Still barefoot, clothes still oddly fashionable in a toga meets loungewear way.
You glance behind you. The boat is gone.so is the tambourine.so is the scroll. You're.
Just you again, and yet, not quite. You walk through the town.
People nod politely. One woman gives you a squinty look and says, "Weren't you here yesterday?"
You nod back, equally confused. Probably, it's comforting. Everything is quieter.
Earthier. Sleepier. You find a bench under a fig tree.
That's definitely not humming, and sit. A breeze lifts your hair. You smile, and you rest. A dolphin leaps out of the sea dot. It isn't far from shore, just beyond the little fishing boats bobbing gently in the harbour. Near that one pelican who seems to be judging everyone's life choices. Then another dolphin appears.
Then 3. Then
7. You mid-fig bite on your harbour bench, half wondering whether you should take off your sandals and walk into the sea for no reason at all, when it becomes obvious. These dolphins are not acting like normal dolphins. For one thing, they're harmonizing, not just chittering or squeaking.
actually harmonizing baritone, tenor, alto, and one who sounds suspiciously like he's doing backup percussion with his blowhole. Then one of them flips dramatically into the air and lands with a splash that feels
choreographed. You stand.
Slowly. No one else on the dock seems surprised. The fisherman lazily glances up from untangling his net and says, "Oh, they're back."
You raise an eyebrow. Who's back? The Tyrrhenians, he says, with a shrug so casual it nearly collapses into a nap. You know, the pirates. Your fig falls out of your hand. The dolphins circle in close, tails swishing rhythmically. Their eyes are unmistakable, expressive, vaguely smug, and one of them definitely raises an eyebrow at you, which you didn't think dolphins could even do. You step down to the water's edge. They nod in unison, then continue their synchronized routine. Barrel rolls, loop-de-loops, and at one point, a fully coordinated underwater conga line. And this is the important part. They seem to be trying to tell you something. They pause, look at you.
Then all 9 of them form a ring and start spinning slowly. Like a rotating flower, a shape appears in the center. It's not Dionysus. It's a barrel. You blink. Then it bursts open, pop, and out floats a single scroll. Of course, you
wade in and pluck it from the surface.
It's sealed with a grape stamp. You crack it open and unroll it.
The handwriting is lazy and a bit tipsy looking. A grape stain smudges the lower corner. It reads, "They've been practicing.
Be nice.
Also, tell them to stop using my bath salts."
Do you look at the dolphins? One winks, and then they start again, but this time, The dance is more narrative. They're telling the story of the voyage. You watch, enraptured, as flippers recreate a storm. Their spins mimicking the madness
of the cursed ship, tails slapping in sync to represent vines curling up the mast. One of them plays you yes. You and hops adorably in place while flapping pretend panic. You cross your arms. I wasn't that dramatic. The dolphin you
does a mock faint. You sigh.
Fair enough.
Historians still debate whether the Tyrrhenian pirates truly became dolphins, or if the myth was an elaborate metaphor for repentance, or perhaps simply an allegory about the dangers of kidnapping gods. Others point to evidence that some ancient coastal tribes revered dolphins as reincarnated sailors. The fact that these ones appear to be doing synchronized ballet in 7/8 time.
Open to interpretation, they finish their performance with a final dramatic leap, spraying you with sea mist and possibly hints of ancient cologne.
Then they float in a perfect line, awaiting your reaction. You clap, you cheer, you shout, encore.
They nod pleased, then swim off into the bay. But just before the last one vanishes into the deeper blue, he flips his tail and tosses something toward you. It lands at your feet with a soft splat. A fish, wrapped in a miniature toga. You stare at it, then at the empty sea. Then you laugh, and laugh, because of course the ex-pirates formed an interpretive dance troupe, because of course they still have a sense of drama. You sit back down on your fig tree bench, salty and smiling, and notice something new. The tambourine is back. It's leaned against the trunk like it never left, and this time there's a small note tucked into its rim, just 3 words. Use if bored. You rest your head back, close your eyes, and listen. Out in the distance, the dolphins are still singing. You decide it's time to go home. You've had your fill of grapevine miracles, musical dolphins, and philosophical goats that quote Plato while chewing sandal straps. Your sandals are back on. Your bag holds exactly 1 tambourine, a half-eaten fig, and a scroll that smells faintly of wine and divine mischief. You stand, stretch, and squint toward the mainland. There it is, familiar and solid, just past the misty horizon.
You see hills, olive trees, and what you swear is the corner of your favorite bakery. You haven't eaten proper bread in.
How long? That's the thing. You're not entirely sure. Time, as they say, is slippery around gods. You flag down a boatman,
who agrees to ferry you across for the price of a story.
You ask what kind.
He shrugs and says, surprise me. So you tell him about dolphins and pirates and Dionysus' humming snacks, and he rows slower just to hear more daughter as the boat glides
along. The water grows still, eerily still. You peer over the side. Your reflection stares back.
But something's off. You're older.
Or maybe younger. Or maybe you look exactly the same, but with better posture and suspiciously shinier eyebrows. The boatman chuckles. You get used to it. Some people come back with a beard full of bees. You're lucky. You nod, pretending that sentence made sense. Then you reach the shore. You step out. Sand beneath your feet. Familiar stones underfoot. It's your world again. Almost. You head toward the city gates. A scribe at the entrance stops you and asks your name. You tell him. He flips through a clay tablet, frowns, flips again. Finally, he looks up and says, that name hasn't been recorded here in 43 years. You blink. What? He squints at you. You look great for 90. You mutter something about grape-based preservation and walk into the city. It's the same, but different. The streets have new names.
There's a temple dedicated to Dionysus that wasn't there before. There's a statue of him, 2 carved from marble, reclining with a smug grin and 1 raised eyebrow. It's unmistakably the face of your old shipmate. You step closer and see a plaque at the base. It reads, to the god who forgave the pirates,
and turned wine into interpretive dance. Underneath, smaller text, may those who cross him do so with snacks.
You shake your head. As you wander deeper into the streets, you hear a familiar jingling sound.
A tambourine. You turn. A child, maybe 7, is playing it while skipping in lazy circles. You ask them where they got it. They giggle. It just showed up one day. Figures. You walk past the marketplace, marveling at how the bread smells exactly the same, and how some of the figs are now sold in little jars labeled, these favorites. You pass a theatre where someone's performing a farcical version of the pirate tale you lived, complete with rubber dolphins and way too much interpretive splashing. No one believes it's real, except the old woman on the corner who catches
your eye and says, you look like someone who knows how to row with a baguette.
You pause. She winks,
Historians still debate how myths survive, whether they're carried in scrolls, in songs, or in the grooves of ancient sea-washed stones.
Some say the tale of Dionysus and the pirates is metaphor.
Others argue it's warning. A few suspect it's divine comedy taken a little too literally. None agree on the purpose of the dancing dolphins. You walk to your old street and find your house gone.
In its place, a bookstore. You step inside. The air smells like old papyrus and fresh cinnamon on the shelf by the door. A slim volume titled How Not to Kidnap a God. Lessons from the Sea, author. Unknown, the shopkeeper eyes you. You look familiar. You shrug. I get that a lot. You buy the book anyway, as you head back outside. Twilight begins to fall. The sky turns honey pink. The scent of roasting garlic drifts through the breeze. You sit on a nearby bench and finally just breathe. Then you hear it. A laugh, soft, musical, unmistakable. You glance up, across the street. Dionysus is leaning against a wall, sipping something purple from a gold cup. He raises it in salute. You open your mouth to say something, but he's already gone. Just a shimmer in the warm dusk air. You smile. You're home, kind of. Night falls quietly. You sit beneath a fig tree that seems to have grown exactly where your childhood garden once stood. The air is soft. The stars are beginning to poke through a navy sky, and in the distance, someone plays a flute lazily of key.
But comfortingly human. Your legs stretch out on warm stone. Your eyes are heavy in the best way, behind your lids. You still see flashes of dolphins leaping, pirates yelling, and Dionysus twirling a grape between his fingers like he's deciding
whether to eat it or invent a new planet. You think about the statue again.
That half smile, about the pirates turned dolphins who may or may not be forming a travelling sea choir, about the tambourine you lost and somehow gave to the next strange soul. You think, it all actually happened, didn't it? But also, did it?
You
try to sketch the events in your mind, make sense of them. You remember a floating picnic with goat cheese arranged in a perfect spiral. You remember a philosophical goat who asked you whether grapes could feel joy. You remember wine that poured itself, a lion that tried to play fetch, and trees that hummed lullabies. Maybe none of it makes sense, but it all feels real. And maybe that's the only kind of real the gods care about. Historians still argue over
this tale. Some say the pirates were symbols of reckless humanity.
Others believe it was Dionysus teaching a lesson about hubris.
And a quiet few wonder if it was all just an elaborate joke the god played to entertain himself between wine festivals. You remember the way he looked at you calm, curious, with
a little mischief, and think, probably all of the above. You stretch again.
Your shoulders crack. Your back creaks like an old ship. A breeze rustles the leaves above, and you swear they whisper, "Don't row with baguettes." You grin, and with that, your body relaxes into the stone bench as if it were made for this exact moment. You tuck your arms around yourself, the way sailors do when trying to nap without falling overboard. Your thoughts slow. Drift, somewhere across the sea. You know Dionysus is dancing, or drinking, or both, and tomorrow, maybe you'll follow the sound of that off-key flute and see where it leads. But not tonight. Tonight, you rest, and now, everything slows, the sky grows heavier. Deeper, darker like velvet dipped in ink. Stars
bloom across it one by one, like distant campfires left burning in the heavens.
Even the breeze is slower now, softer, barely whispering as it brushes past your skin like a lullaby made of air. The world settles. You let your limbs grow heavy, your thoughts even heavier. There's no need to sort out what was real and what
was divine mischief.
Some things like a god disguised as a castaway, or pirates who turn into dolphins aren't made to be puzzled out. They're just made to be lived. You take a slow breath in and let it out, long and lazy, far off. A
tambourine jingles once.
Just once. The sound dissolves like sugar in warm tea. Let your mind wander now, like a ship with its sails down, drifting wherever the water's warmest. Maybe you're back on the sea. Maybe you're under that fig tree again. Or maybe you're someplace else entirely safe still. Floating. You did well to make it this far, through gods and chaos, and oddly friendly wild animals. Now, it's time to let it all fade. Let the last glimmers of moonlight ripple gently across your thoughts. Let the world turn without you for a little while, and just rest.